Hey everybody, welcome to another episode, another live Q&A for Lombardi Time Brews. I'm your host, John Delray. Just checking in on this Wednesday, decided to see how everybody's doing. Thought I'd offer an injury update, few thoughts on the Chargers as well. So I do see a couple of questions here. I'll get to them in just one brief second. First, though, I will cover the injury report very quickly. Jair Alexander was a did not practice again today, out again with that shoulder injury. Matt LaFleur said in his press conference, Jair's getting better. He's just not there yet. And in a season where you're 3-6 and he's got a back injury and a shoulder injury. Now, granted, we don't know what the shoulder injury is, but it was bad enough to keep him out of a game. You just got to wonder at what point to just put him on IR and just let him fully heal up. Just have him take a month off. It's at least worth a conversation, I would think, inside 1265 Lombardi right now. And then also Rudy Ford did not practice today as well with a bicep injury. Then on the limited side, Quay Walker did indeed return to practice today, so he was back. Christian Watson, Aaron Jones, Elton Jenkins, Kenny Clark, all were limited today as well. None of them particularly shocking, as they've all been dealing with their various maladies for most of the season in most of their cases. So just a quick injury update for you. One other interesting note in that kind of regard, LaFleur said in his press conference today that the Packers are not practicing with pads at all this week. Generally, they can do one padded practice a week per the CBA. He said they are not going to use that this week, instead opting for more mental work and recovery for their bodies. They just thought that they have so many banged up players that they're short at so many positions. It was best to be on the more cautious side. And I guess my only thought there is I'm fine with no pads, but the hope is that the competitive aspect of practice that Matt LaFleur brought in a couple weeks ago with one-on-one, stuff like that, I do hope that still remained in the practice portion. But I mean, if the team is banged up, you don't want those guys to get hurt anymore. I at least see the logic in it. So let's see how everybody's doing out there. Don't know how long I'll stick around today, but as long as people got questions, I'll be here. Don starting us off. Hello, Don, saying over under Austin Eckler 100 rushing yards. Love the cast. Try to make them all, just can't sometimes. So thank you, Don. Really do appreciate that. Over. It's the safer bet, really. I mean, the Chargers are top 10 in almost every offensive metric except for rushing yards per game. Now, that was thrown off a bit by Austin Eckler's early season ankle injury. So, that did skew the numbers a little bit. But even since Eckler's been back, it's not like he's been rushing for 150 yards a game. Nonetheless, I got to think the defensive game plan for this week, going against Justin Herbert, going against a team that's top 7 in points per game, I think that they're going to be pretty far back this week. I think this is one of those classic, Joe Barry, back everybody up 15 yards, make sure they can't get a big playoff type style defensive affairs for the Packers. So that tells me Eckler is going to have some room to run. So smart guess on my part would be that Eckler does cross the century mark for rushing yards. It's no guarantee, but yeah, I'd probably go that way. Chris Hand, hey Chris, always fun to be here. Friendly, fired up Packer fans, Lombardi Time Brews style. I like that. Friendly, fired up Packer fans. I like that. That's what we are. Don saying not a fantasy question, just your thoughts. Yeah, no problem. No problem. I make no guarantees, even if you want to make a bet on it. I make no guarantees. Don't have me liable. This is not official financial advice, but I'll tell you whatever you ask. Miserable Goat, hello to you. Here we go again. Amen. If only we could get rid of those sensitive types, maybe we could get somewhere. Well, you talking players? Because, yeah, I mean, in the case of Jair, back injuries suck, right? And we have no idea the details of the back injury. And now he's got this shoulder thing. I know it's the opposite shoulder than the one that completely ended his 2021 season, or at least that's what Tom Silverstein has reported for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. But we don't know what happened there either. It's just the dude is banged up beyond obviously being able to do much at all. So our stint, maybe. And for this, all the other injuries, Elton Jenkins, he's still playing. Today was a shorter practice. Sometimes it's their padded practice in the week. Since it wasn't this week, I think they just said, Elton Jenkins, you're one who doesn't need a lot of mental work, just go limited instead of full. Okay, fair enough. Same kind of with Aaron Jones, although Aaron Jones's uh, performance on Sunday was less than ideal. And I'm talking even before the final kind of screw up there, if you will. He just did not look right. Something he was taking the words that were there or the yards that were there, but something was off about Aaron Jones on Sunday. And I don't know what they got to do about that hamstring. He's another player that probably earlier in this year would have been better served just by putting him on IR for a month and just letting him heal up. But I get why they don't want to do that too. Um, the Devils, is Stokes on IR or just so hurt no one asks? No, he's officially on IR. He was put on, he was either the same day, same week that Darnell Savage was put on IR as well. So basically, he came back, played Gunner for a few snaps, and then messed up his hamstring. Beyond that, we don't know a lot of details, but then he was placed on IR pretty quick thereafter. So must have been a strain of some kind of significance. Or if it's the same leg that he did have the foot and ankle injuries, maybe they just said, okay, the leg is just straight up not ready yet. And his injuries were fairly traumatic with screws going into his feet and everything. So no, he's on IR. I think his stint is coming up though, where they could open up the practice window, maybe one more week or so. Don't quote me on that, but it's something like that before they can begin to open his practice window. So other than that, no Stokes updates at all at this juncture. Miserable goat. In other words, we existed the Groundhog's Day just to enter again full force. You put Groundhog's Day, man. But yeah, I mean, the Packers do seem to be caught in a cycle this year. A lot of the injuries that have been suffered are injuries that just keep coming back. I mean, Aaron Jones's hamstring is a perfect example. He just cannot seem to kick it and get to 100%. The plus side, though, is, I mean, we all kind of entered this year. Obviously, we had high hopes. I certainly did. But at the end of the day, we knew that this was going to be an evaluation year, a learning year, etc. And against Pittsburgh, they did make progress, especially J Love and the passing, just the whole organization there. So, yeah, it sucks. But, like, I mean, at least it's not to the point where it's hindering progress for the entire offense anymore. That's a silver lining at the very least. Chris Hand. Sometimes it makes me mad when you have a star player that actually gets it done, but that player has one bad day or year, then that player is on the wanted list from the fan base. Sometimes. Yeah, I get it. You know, and Jair is probably the best example of that this year. I mean, I haven't seen many people really go for Aaron Jones's head this week. You know, I think he's earned enough grace from the fan base. But Jair, yeah, I mean, it's true. People have really soured on Jair, and I know you know, Chris, but like so much of my life is dealing in memorabilia and stuff like that, and that market for Jair has gone downhill in the last couple of months. I can tell you with certainty. So, yeah, it's true. There's different players on the Packers that certainly have different approval ratings within the fan base right now, and some of them may be quite different than they were even a year ago at this time. Miserable goat, keep up the good work. I'm riding with you until we get back where you supposed to be. Thank you, man. I do appreciate that, and it's true. Like I don't know who I made angry at YouTube, but man, like I'm in year 2 of this and I was getting better numbers in year 1 sometimes. And I'm not meaning to complain at all, but like I made somebody angry. So I can tell you, I did get asked this on Twitter. Someone actually DM'd me and said, like, hey, you used to include more highlights in your videos. Why'd you stop? And the answer is because I like got flagged by the NFL a couple times for using copywritten material. So I figured like at least for a month or so, I better avoid that because that may be hurting the algorithm since the NFL came after the little dude. All right, Chris Hand, Darnell Savage as well. Yeah, I think Darnell though some of his issues came from like he built up a pretty strong reputation of not being in the right place at the wrong or at not the right time. Like he had some tackling issues. There were no doubt about it, like at all. You know, and so That's part of it. Plus, Darnell Savage reached such a nice peak. I think it was 2020, if I'm remembering correctly. Like he had a multi-interception season. He was kind of becoming the big play guy next to the steadiness of Adrian Amos at that time. And then Savage's play just continued to kind of fall off, especially when Joe Barry came in. And then this year, it's like he made the move to kind of become solid again. Maybe not spectacular, but he was doing some solid work as a safety. And then he gets hurt. And in the final year of his contract, it's not good. Like Hevels, I'm very curious how we view this team if last year we didn't have those lucky wins, Dolphins, Rams, Vikings. Feel like last year has bled over. Yeah, I think, honestly, like Hevels, I think a big part of it is there's a lot of frustration because last year and this year, some of the problems look the same. And we were under a presumption and some ways sold a bill of goods for the organization that like things are going to be different now. Because one of the big problems last year was a horribly stagnant offense that couldn't move the ball at times. And then you had some accuracy problems from the quarterback. You had a defense that was playing a mile off the ball, right? And yet not giving up a ton of points, but still, that's a very frustrating way to play defense at times. And then we came into this year and we're like, all right, new era of Packers football. It's all about the baby Packers, etc. And then things kind of stayed the same. Joe Barry's still playing a mile off, whether it's good for the team or not. And the Love offense has looked shockingly like the Rodgers offense of last year at times. And even LaFleur's play calling hasn't looked drastically different. We all thought that there was at least be more differences. I think now, at least offensively, we're beginning to see those changes. Love did target the middle of the field against the Steelers and the Rams more often than he did for basically the entire 6 weeks prior. So it's understandable, but yeah, I think people would be a lot more negative if even last year they finished even worse than having some remote chance at the playoffs. So let's see how the rest of this year pans out. Peter, bonsoir, bonjour to you, Peter. Could Q Blue Kelly eventually turn out to be the next Rasul? He had been voted national team's cornerback practice player of the week at Reese's Senior Bowl in February 2023. I like that kid. Yeah. So he's kind of, I think Rasul is a nice comp at this point. So Rasul was more zone corner than man corner, right? Kelly is more zone than man. That's at least according to Lance Zierlein of NFL.com. I think the only thing that Kelly can do more in the vein of Rasul, I think he's a little bit more athletic, but I think Rasul on the whole was more aggressive. Now, early career Rasul, before he got to the Packers, wasn't so much. But then I think he got to the Packers and he had this certain element of like, screw it. This is my last shot. I'm on an active roster. I got signed from a practice squad. I'm going to go ball. So I think Rasul kind of got this attitude of like, I'm going to lead now. I'm going to be aggressive now. And Kelly may do the same, but they do have similar coverage styles. As for the other new corner, Robert Rochelle, he's been on the team for a little over a week now. He is more press man, more in the mold of Carrington Valentine, a little bit more Jair. So could Cubic Kelly eventually become something? Yeah, for sure. I mean, he was a 5th-round pick this year for a reason. But I'd also caution expectations because he's also on his 3rd team already for a reason as well. Miserable goat because Alexander talked that talk but couldn't walk it. Yeah, that's definitely part of it, right? You can't be one of the loudmouths of the locker room and then not play. Or can't be one of the loudmouths of the locker room and then get burned in such a visible way as Jair did at times earlier in the year. I think, maybe Jair assumed, maybe we all did, that he had a little bit more grace built up like an Aaron Jones. He was still an all-pro last year. So maybe that's part of it. But I think you pair in the money with the smash talk, with not playing, doesn't bode well. Packers, and I want to say too, the Packers don't do favors for dudes with these chronic injuries that are up and down, going through the fluctuations of sometimes practicing, sometimes not. The Packers offer no real transparency when it comes to injuries. That's been their policy for eternity. And what that does is it allows for rampant speculation, right? The Packers offered 1/10 of the details that David Bakhtiari ever offered about his knee. It's like the reporters that get the details straight from Dave over the course of the last year. And that allowed for public perception who aren't as hardcore, who aren't going to go read every single press conference quote or read every single locker room quote from David. It allows things to build and public perception to get worse. The Packers they just don't do their players any favor in terms of injury management. And it has been that way because they'd rather maintain some kind of competitive advantage from not revealing things, or they don't want to reveal it on behalf of the player because the player wants to stay private. I don't know. They could be more open and it would help PR relations at the very least. Chris, I don't know how much college football you watch, but I am so shocked Oklahoma's not in the playoff race. Hardcore defense led by Brent Venables from Clemson as head coach now, and it's paying off. Chris, I watch no college football. None. Like, I am very open about that. I will watch some when it comes to draft prep. I will go back, watch different things, especially if I think the Packers have an eye on a player. Other than that, no. Like, Saturdays are my family days. Sundays I devote to watch parties and stuff. I don't consume college football. I never have. Like, even when I was a little kid, just rooting. Like, it was never my deal. I don't know why, but all the power to those who enjoy it. Scott saying, hi, John. Don't understand with Ford and Savage contracts are up and not getting Johnson Jr. in there more. Yeah, well, for one, yes, Savage's contract is coming up. I would be surprised to see Savage back in Green Bay. Rudy Ford, on the other hand, I think there is great potential that Rudy Ford and the Packers will come to a contract agreement again, just like they did last offseason. Certainly at an elevated price now. But I see him sticking around for a bit. With Anthony Johnson Jr., we don't know what, but there must be something that he has not yet mastered. Before he started that game against the Rams, Anthony Johnson Jr. said at his locker that there are parts of the safety position that he is straight up learning right now, that he does not understand yet, because he was a corner for the first 4 years of college. And then at Iowa State for his last year, that's when they switched him to safety. And it is a completely different language. Then he gets into the NFL, which is a different language on top of that. So, like, there must be some gap in his understanding yet to where he still is the emergency option at safety. With that being said, as we get down the stretch, if Savage remains out, which it sounds like he very well might, then we may see him creep into the playing time of a Jonathan Owens. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And they're not going to say what, but there must be some kind of gap there as to why they're just not trotting him out right now. Scott also saying Packers need to swap Wicks with Watson. Yeah, there was a very interesting graph that came out today. I saw it spread around a few different places. Christian Watson is one of the most double-teamed receivers in the league right now. Yeah, let that sink in. Why? But the thing is, they are employing him right now in a way that says, get on down the field and bring the defense with you. And if he's filling that role for him, whether they're getting the ball that often or not, then, I mean, like, how do you take that off the field? It's obviously a part of their plan. Where I very, very much agree with you is with Dontavian Wicks. And I think the answer to getting Wicks on the field may actually be reducing some of Watson and a little bit of Romeo Doubs. Doubs seems to get open more effectively in the red or when the defense is in tighter coverage. So maybe if things are very, very spaced out, then you put in Wicks. But I very much agree. I mean, Wicks is getting open at a higher clip than any other receiver on the Packers. They got to get him on the field. He also seems to be, I said this during the watch party, I believe too, he seems to be like the new Randall Cobb, in that Cobb knew where to just sit in a zone for his quarterback to find him. Wicks seems to really be catching on to that really, really well. Love and he are building a nice connection in that way. There have been several times in the last couple of weeks where Wicks, like, you watch him go out on his route and then he just plants and he's between like the four quadrants of the zone defenders around him, and Love just drops it in there. That's what you want against zone coverage, and Wicks seems to be figuring that out. I agree about Wicks. He's our go-to guy. Yeah, for sure. At this point, him and Reed, really, like, Reed is performing at a clip substantially higher than I think anyone even expected him to. Miserable Goat, if Alexander didn't talk that talk, he didn't walk the heat, wouldn't have reached him. There's a thin line between arrogance and confidence, and he stepped on the arrogance side. Yeah. It's really, really hard to accept that, he talks, and even on the field, he exemplifies the talker, right? And then 3 plays later, he gets burned. Now, if he was playing all year like he played the second half against the Rams, then yeah, you go, J Money, like you talk that talk, but you can't talk that talk and then get burned by Drake London or Jordan Addison. You can't be getting burned by rookies and second-year dudes when you're a 2-time All-Pro and you're spouting off about them not being good enough. So I tend to agree with you. And it was not his best look, that's for sure. And that is a big part. Pair that with the fact that the dude makes like $24 million a year and isn't playing. That's a really good way to gain a bunch of ire from the fan base too. Peter, since we have no true wide receiver number 1, although most people believed Watson would become so, I think we desperately need a veteran during next free agency. Would you rather get T. Higgins, Michael Pittman Jr., or Mike Evans? So first, let me say I agree with your overall premise. Yes, I think that they could use a veteran starter. I mean, look at, and things are going sour there now, but like Stephon Diggs, look what he did for Josh Allen. And there's so many examples of young quarterbacks who show some promise, or A.J. Brown for Jalen Hurts, right? Like quarterbacks who show some promise, but they got some questions about them. Then they get a bona fide number 1. Then it's like, oh, okay, we got our guy. Jordan Love needs his counterpart in that regard. And so I'd say, like, I agree with your overall premise. The one person that I'd make an exception for is if the Packers are in draft position to get Marvin Harrison Jr., then do it. And you live with that young cadre of receivers then. Beyond Marvin Harrison Jr., though, yeah, then let's talk about getting someone else, maybe Coleman from college too, may fit in that category. But of the 3 you listed, T. Higgins is going to be a free agent. Pittman Jr., Mike Evans. Give me T. Higgins, I guess, of the batch. Now, because T. Higgins is very, very good at making contested catches, Packers have shown that that is something that they very much could use in their wide receiver arsenal at this time. I really like Mike Evans, but he's the oldest of the bunch. Michael Pittman Jr. is more of a complete receiver, but I don't think he necessarily brings anything beyond just production that the Packers don't have. So I think T. Higgins would at least bring something different into the wide receiver room. But I understand fully that T. Higgins is going to cost them a whole bunch of money to go get at this time. So I guess for right now, give me Higgins. Scott saying Wicks and Reed, our best wide receivers. Yeah, and Dobbs randomly near the end zone, right? But like, yeah, no, you're not wrong. That's the way it looks. I mean, Wicks is probably their best route runner already, which shows you that there's something to be desired from the other ones on the route running front. That's for sure. Jacob Clay, hey man, sorry we're late. No, hello to you. Glad you made it all. Miserable Goat, is Malik Heath on vacation? No, he's just buried. There's been a bunch of weeks where he's been completely inactive. Like he's been a healthy scratch. The last 2 weeks, they've benched Samori Toure, made him inactive to get Malik Heath a spot on the active 48 for game day. And beyond that, I mean, he's their 5th wide receiver. And Heath hasn't done himself that many favors. And I can think of off the top of my head at least 2 drops that he's had. And they were not contested catch drops. They were just drops. So he hasn't done himself a world of favors in that regard. And we really shouldn't be surprised that a UDFA who balled out during training camp is a bit more of a project. So maybe he still has a bright future ahead of him. It's just he does appear to be more in the project category than anything else. Jacob Clay, can I use this time to vent about our general physicality problem? I think this starts with coaching. We seem to only be able to bring the dance like a butterfly mentality to both sides of the field. Yeah, I mean, I will say that the LaFleurian system, the Shanahan system, the McVay system, what Mike McDaniel's doing down in Miami. Everyone that comes off of this tree, it is not a smash mouth offensive grind. Like that's not its style. It's more of a finesse style offense. So I don't think we're ever really going to see like the Mike Vrabel implementation or even Dan Campbell of like bite their kneecap style offense. Defensively, though, I think it does have a little something to do with how their coordinator is asking them to play the game. Now, Joe Barry is very big on swarming and tackling, but when you ask your dudes to play 12 yards, 15 yards, you're asking your two edge rushers to line up 6 yards off the guards. They got to run before they can get aggressive, and it's just not. It's not conducive to being an intense defense. It's more of a passive defense. There's a number of legendary football players who have said that the way that they would ramp up intensity in a game is by being in the trenches, by hitting somebody. That's one of the purposes of the run game on offense is just to get your line warmed up, using their muscles and punching rather than just standing back and pushing. So there is something really to be said for that. And offensively, I don't think we'll ever see it. Defensively, we need to see it. Let's say that. Scott, contract on Higgins. Ouch. Evans, we could get cheaper. Yeah, but of course, Evans is, off the top of my head, Evans is 30 years old already, I think. He doesn't have a cheap contract, although I don't know his cap hit off the top of my head. And he's going to cost draft capital, which he's having a pretty good season. So I don't think the capital is going to be like nothing. So, I don't know a ton about what's going on with Mike Evans, but I that's my hesitation there. Sure, you want to bring him in to teach everybody else to be a number one for a year or two? Like, yeah, I'm not upset about it. I just think the circumstances are more in line with T. Higgins, but I very much get where you come from. Jacob, whether Joe's defense playing 10 yards off or on 3rd and 2 or our wide receivers literally rolling forward like we're stop, drop, and roll. Yeah, the thing, like Luke Musgrave is pulling. Like, how does that man, that size, that strength, not able to stand on 2 feet like, ever? Like he always, it's whether he needs to or not, he's always like reaching up for the ball. I don't know what it is. I know it's a college that dates back all the way through or it's a problem that dates back through college. I don't know why it's such an issue for him. So I mean, I get what you're saying there. But yeah, defensively, they're too spaced out to do anything. Like that's been one of my contentions all along. Like you've heard me complain on this channel before about like, it's not just the fact that they're running Vic Fangio schemes. It's the fact that they're running his schemes 15 yards away. And that's not helping anybody. Like all we can do is hope for the future, I guess. Chris, if I'm eating food, I literally stop eating like a cartoon character when I see your defense off 10 yards on 3rd down, especially on 3rd and 3 when we line up 10 yards off. Yeah. Anthony, hello to you. Hello, my friend. I hope you are good. What are you looking for the rest of the season? As in the rest of the season, just as see who stays and who goes. Yeah, I mean, number one, I want to see Jordan Love continue on the track that he's been on the last 2 weeks. See if he can do that with any form of consistency so that by the time week 18 wraps up, we can look at him and say, all right, definitively, you get another year at the very least, and you're the guy. Because if he plays week in and week out, like he just played against the Steelers, they probably found their guy to move on with. And I think that eliminates a lot of the talk of going and getting a quarterback in the draft or anything like that. Maybe they'll still grab it on the 3rd, but like I'm talking Caleb Williams, Drake May type territory. That's number one. Number 2, I'm looking for cohesion on the offensive side of the ball. Again, like what we started to see from the Steelers, a passing operation that can actually work and not just stagnant at times. The other thing that I want to see is at least one upset, whether it be against the Lions on Thanksgiving, which will be a very long shot, or against the Chiefs. I want to see this team go out and say, we now know how to win. This was our statement game, or to borrow Rogers' phrase, this was our galvanizing moment. Not that it's going to turn around the season, but that it sets all these young guys up for next year to say, last year wasn't a total loss. We now know how to win. So I guess those are my top three. Defensively, I don't even want to see a ton, frankly, because I feel like all the horses are the right horses for the race. I feel like the jockey is the one who needs to go, might go. You guys know, like, I like Joe Barry a lot better than other people, but it's become pretty clear they need a different captain for that ship. So defensively, yeah, if they play great, great. But that's not going to change my mind about needing someone new to right the ship. Scott saying an older wide receiver to teach our young ones for a year or two. Yeah, I don't mind that one bit. And then Mike Evans would totally be that. Don't mind that one bit. The thing that I don't want to see, though, is let's go out and get a Sammy Watkins who's going to be our wide receiver 4. And sure, he's here as a teacher, but we're not going to get any type of production from him. That's the kind of thing that I don't want to see them do. Marvin Harrison Jr. would be a huge asset for Jordan Love's improvement, but I fear the Bears will pick him first. Yeah, the Bears, they're going to be a problem. I was actually just talking to Claudia about this a little bit ago. The Bears are probably going to have 2 picks in the top 5, and they alone may make sure that Green Bay has no chance in sweet goodness at Marvin Harrison Jr. So I wouldn't be shocked. Scott saying Bears taking a quarterback. Yeah, they very well might. I mean, unless Fields balls out over the last month of the season, which he could. But, I mean, they may very well pick Caleb Williams with pick 1, and then you see a team pick like Drake May pick 2, and then if the Bears are sitting there at 3, why not go get your rookie quarterback, a rookie wide receiver to go with them? And then you also have DJ Moore there. All of a sudden, the Bears are beginning to cook on offense a little bit. So won't be shocked if the Bears make sure the Packers can't get him. Jacob Clay saying Muhammad Ali and Tyson were having talk, and Tyson called Ali the GOAT, but then Ali said, yeah, but one hit from him would knock me out. We need to be more physical. Swarm the ball. Fight for 50-50. Yeah, okay, there. Yes. Offensively, the Christian Watson especially, but all of the wide receivers have to start fighting for the ball. Like, the fact that the Packers' contested catch rate this year is under half of what it was last year is a joke. And it's no way to get a young quarterback into a rhythm and get him moving. So, and it's not entirely their fault. The ball placement is a little bit worse this year. Of course, the wide receivers are young too, but it's an issue. So yeah, that way offensively, 1,000,000% agreement with you. And defensively, just the whole thing. Yeah, right? Whole thing. Scott saying, you think Packers are going to let most of our free agents go? Well, let's see. That would be A.J. Dillon, John Runyon Jr., they're the 2 big ones. Yash, yeah, I think Yash after this year is pretty well gone. John Runyon Jr., I could see sticking around on a Lucas Patrick type contract where he's not like a guaranteed starter, but he's in it a couple $1,000,000 a year with some versatility to be a inside offensive lineman. A.J. Dillon, I know a lot of people are just writing him off. I won't be shocked at all if the Packers retain him on a Jamal Williams type contract at like $4 million a year for 2 years. Like, it wouldn't shock me, because then that would allow Brian Gutekunst to like make a late round pick for a running back to compete with Emmanuel Wilson for number 3 and not have to address the position in a severe way this offseason when he's looking to plug other holes, get a wide receiver for Love, whatever. So yeah, that way. Defensively, free agents coming up. Rudy Ford, I do think should and could be retained. Darnell Savage, probably not. Trying to think of anybody else. No one else is really coming to me as an expiring contract, at least. Oh, Keyshawn. I don't really see coming back either. I think cornerback is going to be a sneaky need for this team in the offseason. So there you go. That's a quick synopsis. Speaking of quick, I got to do a couple more of these and I got to jump. Chris Hand saying, when we see Jordan Love throw a deep pass to Watson, he better remember how it happened and draw it up some way so the interception burden memory can manage. You know, I saw someone say the other day on Twitter that Matt LaFleur should just take J-Love, Watson, and ideally Jair, but if he can't, then Valentine, I guess, and just go into the Don Hudson Center and you say, you 3 are going to be in here until you complete 30, 40-yard jump balls. Okay? Like that old like basketball style thing, right? Where like you're not leaving the gym until you make 1,000 free throws. Like do that. And whatever the hell you need guys need to do to get on the same page, go do it. But every single throw has got to be in the end zone. You got to jump for every single throw, and you got to do 30 of them before you're allowed to leave. Like I saw someone talking on Twitter, and like honestly, there's worse ideas. Scott saying if MLF won't get rid of Barry, they both need to go. Oh, I've gone back and forth on this a lot. Barry's got to go for sure. But I mean, yeah. Oh. I understand the sentiment. I'm just not ready to say it fully yet. I have seen conspiracy theories on Twitter saying too that this is going to be just like Mike Pettin. Like watch Joe Barry's contract to just be up at the end of the season, and then they're just going to mutually part ways so that there's no actual firing. Maybe because the contract status of assistant coaches is under lock and key. No one knows what they are. So potentially. Jacob, thank you for the super chat, man. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, Jacob. Thanks for broadcasting the game. I'm a trucker and drive on Sunday, so I can't watch. I can always rely on your channel to listen to the game. Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I really, really appreciate that. I know sometimes I do miss the occasional play, but I do try to do play-by-play. So thank you. I really appreciate the super chat. Glad we are here for you. That's why we do it. So thanks, everybody. This is a perfect time for me to jump on out of here. Time for me to go. So thank you, everyone, for hopping on. On Friday, make sure you check it out. I'm going to be doing game preview for Packers versus Chargers. Then, of course, this coming weekend, watch party for Packers versus Chargers and an elite uniform matchup. I don't know if you saw yet. The Packers are going to be in their throwbacks. Chargers going to be in their all whites. Woo! Going to be a pretty day at Lambeau on Sunday. So thanks, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you soon. And as always, go Pack, go.